Last week, PlayStation's State of Play event left us with several very interesting things. Several video games, new, highlighted announcements, and several more of the same, right? The typical predictable announcements. But there was a moment, one that took us completely by surprise, when they showed a trailer for a spectacular video game. A title that we had no idea existed, a dark fantasy title with intense battles and a very sensual and powerful protagonist. I'm referring to Tides of Annihilation, a title that appeared out of nowhere in last week's State of Play. That surprised us and left us wondering, what the hell are we watching? How do you play this? Is it something like Elden Ring? Is it something like Sekiro? Or is it more like a Devil May Cry? What is it? When will it be released? What's the plot? Well, thanks to the internet and thanks to its developers who have been posting new gameplay and information. In today's video, I can specifically tell you what this video game is, who is behind this video game, and also why should you consider it. I don't know what you guys think, but in my personal opinion and to my liking, this title gathers all the elements of something I would love to play right now. I can already tell you that the game is completely multi-platform. It will be released on Xbox, it will be released on PlayStation, and it will be released on PC. This is something worth highlighting because often when we see titles in the State of Play, a lot of people, they tend to think that they are exclusive, but no, this is not an exclusive, it is a multi-platform game. Let's talk about the new gameplay, let's talk about what we know about the title. And also, we're going to talk about some quite interesting details about it, about the studio that's developing it. Because I think we are facing a possible new case. Get ready, Black Meat Wukong, we're about to begin. Subscribe. And we're going to start by talking about the studio that's developing this game because it turns out it's not a famous studio. It's not one of those studios that you've heard of, at least once, but it's a completely unknown studio. It's called Eclipse Glow Games, a Chinese studio that at the time of making this video has nothing. They don't have a game, an experience, a mobile game, nothing developed, and they don't even have an official website. Which leads us to understand that it is a recently formed studio, that perhaps the project has been in development for a long time, but the studio itself is completely new. And something similar is happening here to what happened to us with the game Science. The studio that was behind Black Meat Wukong, which appeared overnight. From one day to the next, we found out it existed, and poof, we had Black Meat Wukong. Although the studio behind Tides of Annihilation is new, the interesting thing is that among their ranks, they have several professionals from the world of video games already with a certain career and certain recognition. For example, among the employees of this studio is Liang Gu, a former combat designer who worked on Devil May Cry 5. And there is also Chen Jia, an animator who participated in Sekiro Shadows Die Twice. These credentials will be explained a bit because this title has a certain combination of elements between hack and slash and perhaps Souls-like. But at the same time that we know certain renowned names within this studio, they also give us some clues that the studio is not at all complete at the time of making this video. But we'll talk about that later. Tides of Annihilation is a single-player action and adventure video game. The story places us in a distorted version of London, plunged into a supernatural fog that has transformed reality and its inhabitants into monstrous creatures. In this context, we take control of Gwendolyn, the last and sensual survivor of the city, who, after discovering that she has powers, embarks on a mission to save her entire family and also restore dimensional normality. The producer of the title commented that the intention with Tides of Annihilation is to capture the excitement of fighting single player, but with allies. That is, they are looking for a single player experience, which can also be supported by minions or companions managed by artificial intelligence. One of the most striking aspects of Tides of Annihilation is the video game's inspiration in Arthurian mythology, that is, in the legend of King Arthur of Camelot, of the Knights of the Round Table, Merlin, the Holy Grail, and all that story. But here we have the whole story of the Knights of the Round Table. with a dark, twisted, and perverse twist. Instead of showing us the typical story of the honorable knights and the quest for honor, the Holy Grail and all that, the game takes us to a corrupt version of this world where the glory of Camelot has been consumed by a dark force that we do not know yet. Our protagonist, Gwendolyn, seems to be connected with this legacy or this past in some way that we also do not know yet. And it seems that this is what allows her to awaken her powers. Throughout the game, Gwendolyn will face corrupted versions of the Knights of the Round Table, who have been transformed into monstrous creatures by the fog that covers the city and have been brought into our reality and our time. The interesting thing is that by defeating each of these bosses, we can obtain certain unique abilities from each knight, which will allow us to expand our arsenal of combos, strikes, and so on. And we will also be able to summon these knights to strike as we develop our combos. We're going to have parry, we're going to have dodges, we're going to have jumps, the summoning of the knights, weak strikes and strong strikes. We could say that we have a combat system. Hack and slash, perhaps with a certain Souls-like spirit. The line that separates hack and slash from Souls-like is quite thin. What we've seen so far suggests that we're in a linear world with semi-open areas. It's not an open world game with free exploration like Elden Ring could be, but it's also not a super linear design. Rather, we have this approach of large interconnected areas in the purest Souls-like style. Perhaps to give an example, we could mention Black Myth Wukong among so many examples that exist. We will need to explore, unlock shortcuts, and find alternative routes to progress. We will have platforming, and we will also have some areas with puzzles to solve. And the setting of the title, all this interdimensional theme and the corruption of reality also serves as an excuse to propose, ways to explore this world in different ways. More alternatives perhaps, because there will be times when reality is completely distorted by all this that is happening. And we have certain platforming or adventure sequences different from what we would find in a common Souls-like or hack or slash. At first glance, Tides of Annihilation looks like everything many of us like. A game that looks spectacular, that has brutal fights, that has magic summons. A linear world, but with exploration, dark fantasy, and even a very beautiful protagonist, which is quite appreciated in these times. And the feeling that happens is more or less the same feeling that happened to us when we first saw Black Myth Wukong. To say, Mother of God, this is spectacular, it looks really good, and it's probably very fun to play. Because you see those combos and you say, I want to play this? But this is where things get interesting, maybe a little interesting when we start to ask ourselves, when are we going to play it? When will this be playable? Because I think we are dealing with a case, Black Myth Wukong 2. Maybe not as intense, but it does go in that direction. And the title may not come out this year, it may not come out next year, and maybe not the year after that either. If we briefly analyze the video game's website, we're going to run into the surprise that the site was enabled. Registered exactly the same day as it was given to the state of play. Something that is quite curious because we have the game's site with certain information, social networks and so on, but we don't have the studio site. And it would seem that this entire studio website is simply focused on recruiting talent, art team, development team, and design team. And in fact, when we open any of these links, it takes us directly to a Chinese job search page and other things. And this powerfully reminds us of what happened with Black Myth Wukong at the time. They published a trailer for a video game with the sole purpose of, yes indeed, developing that video game, but also to recruit staff, to attract talent with a very powerful trailer, yes, but to bring in talent to be able to finish the game. I'm not saying we're dealing with a case that's exactly identical, but this thing about them just publishing the website, that the developer studio doesn't even have an official site, and that they're interested in recruiting staff, it leads me to believe that it's more or less the same case as with Blackbeard. Wukong, they bring a good idea, they bring a good game, they have capabilities, but they don't have the complete team. and they are waiting to complete it in order to launch the title. With Tales of Annihilation, we saw much more gameplay than at the time with Black Myth: Wukong, which leads us to understand that this project may be a little more advanced than at the time. Was Black Myth there when it was first shown to us? But just like Wukong, I think we need to have some patience with this video game. By the way, it's worth mentioning that the development studio didn't even make a statement about when the title will finally be released. There's no release window, no key dates, nothing at all. I don't think this situation takes away any merit or should dampen our excitement about this release, because it looks spectacular and seems fun to play. They showed us gameplay running in-game, although I suppose it's on PC. I don't think it's on PlayStation because they don't clarify it at any point. And it would seem that everything they've shown so far can be played. But once again, it was also like this with Black Myth: Wukong. The first thing they showed was playable. Do you remember that gameplay with the dragonfly? And what did they show us for the first time in all that story? Well, all of that was playable. And in fact, sometime later with Black Myth: Wukong, we found out, because the game science mentioned it, that they only had that part of the game prepared. They had only developed that. So, only that small introduction, which was literally what they went out to look for: people, funding, press, dissemination, and a lot of other things that they got for having something powerful. Could we be facing the same case? I hope so, because Black Myth: Wukong turned out very well. How is the Chinese video game industry coming along, huh? I think it's good, because on this side of the world it seems like things are already... It's getting stale. I'll share more about this game when I have the information. Because just like what happened with Black Myth: Wukong, which we've been following on this channel from the beginning, I'm interested in this title and I think we can bet on it. I think there's something here. Hopefully we're not wrong, just like we weren't wrong with Black Myth: Wukong. Put in the comments what do you think of this presentation and whether it hypes you up or not. This title is coming out again for Xbox Series, for Play 5 and for PC without a confirmed date, much less. Friends, thank you for watching. See you next time. Bye.